I had a standing policy as a young man of always looking for someone to admire, to look up to. That was on the level of my sense of life, my preconceptual, emotionally integrated view of life, the childhood equivalent of a mature rational philosophy. It just so happened my father was a heroic figure, and through emotional associations, I came to admire and integrate people like my father, people who stood up for what they believed in, man of tremendous integrity, and that's been my policy now explicitly, not on the level of emotional subconscious, but on the explicit level of a conscious, mature, rational philosophy. I am a hero seeker. I was a much younger man in my mid-20s. Back in the 1970s, I was in my literary period, reading the classics and just about anything I could get my hands on, and by chance I came across Atlas Shrugged in 1977. Read it more or less as a literary duty, enjoyed it, but was not overwhelmed by any of the philosophy. And then in 1980, I met a very impressive man, in fact, the most impressive individual I've ever met, a man here in Los Angeles named Rex Dante, fairly well known in certain circles here in Los Angeles as a philosopher. And upon first meeting him, I recognized that he was the man of the highest mind I'd ever met. And I asked him how he got like that, and he said, Ayn Rand. And I knew the name, and he suggested I pursue my readings of Ayn Rand, beginning with The Fountainhead, which I did read. In fact, that would have been my second book, of course, having read Atlas Shrugged prior. And from there on, I went to her nonfiction works, including The Romantic Manifesto, which, interestingly enough, is my favorite of all her books, as I'm not truly an artist. And The Romantic Manifesto is her statement on art. The virtue of selfishness, capitalism, the unknown ideal, and many others. Yes, I feel very fortunate to have lived in the time of Ayn Rand, and I've thought about that many times. I don't know where I'd be without objectivism, exactly. I was always intellectually oriented, but there are a lot of people out there posing as intellectuals who don't impress me at all. In fact, many intellectuals claim the title based on an anti-intellectual approach to the intellect, believe it or not. Nietzsche was the only other philosopher who stimulated me, and it was because of his sense of life. He had a marvelous feeling about the greatness of man, which he groped to express explicitly, but never at the same high level that Ayn Rand was able to achieve. As soon as I began reading Ayn Rand seriously after my meeting with Rex Dante, it didn't take long before I recognized quite clearly that she was beyond the pale, well beyond the pale, an epical genius, if you will.
The reality we live in is the only reality there is. Things are what they are. Learn to use your mind to identify those things accurately and evaluate them. Don't turn your mind into a distorting agent. Don't use your mind to evade the facts of reality. Confront reality as it is, which is the principle of justice. A is A. Things are what they are. Nature, in order to be commanded, has to be obeyed. Part of nature is your own mind. It has an identity. Learn how to use it properly. To the extent that you do, you'll be happy and successful. To the extent that you evade that knowledge, you will be unhappy and unsuccessful. Without a doubt. This is a wonderful endeavor in and of itself. There's a lot of self-satisfaction to be derived from recognizing that you were able to discipline yourself and use a certain amount of knowledge to take yourself from point A to point Z. Take your body from being average or below average to whatever it ultimately might be. But if you were to look deep down inside of yourself, get honest, what you're really looking for, even a businessman, somebody who wants to make a lot of money, $1 million, they do want the money, and that's fine and good. At bottom, the purpose of all goal achievement is to develop a sense of mastery, efficacy, to achieve a certain type of happiness that can only be had as a result of achieving goals. A lot of people find once they acquire the muscles they'd always dreamed of, they're not really different inside because they don't take this philosophical approach. The idea is to gain a sense of mastery, a sense of self-esteem, happiness, which can only be derived from achieving goals. You have to have that stated explicitly at the outset. If you think that you're going to end up having those things only as a result of having the muscles, and you don't work on developing other aspects of your life along with it, like your philosophy, then you're just going to end up with a set of muscles and be bereft of the rest. A lot of top bodybuilders, as top bodybuilders, of course, they have the big muscles, but they're self-arrested intellectually. They're no further ahead at the age of 30 or 40 mentally than they were 10 or 15 years ago when they started. They're psychologically beset by the same conflicts, the same sense of insecurity, uncertainty, self-doubt. They've got the big muscles, but they didn't get that sense of mastery. Self-esteem can only be achieved by starting the whole process by stating explicitly, not only do I want big muscles, but I want self-confidence. I can only get that by enjoying the process, gaining the knowledge, recognizing that I am a more effective person.
It's interesting, as gratifying as it is to receive emails, phone calls, letters every day from bodybuilders around the globe, thanking me for helping enlighten them with regards to a valid scientific approach to training. Much more gratifying is the overwhelming response that I've had the last several years from bodybuilders, thanking me for introducing them to Ayn Rand, objectivism, and the realm of the intellect.